Hello, Muslim friends of the world. Have you ever imagined how a religion from a distant part of the world could become a part of daily life in a country located at the eastern tip of Africa? This is the story of Islam's arrival in Somalia, a journey that began more than 1,400 years ago. Yet its impact is still felt to this day. In the 7th century AD, the Islamic world had just experienced an extraordinary wave of expansion following the death of Prophet Muhammad. Trade between the Middle East and other regions became one of the primary means of spreading Islam, and Somalia lay along the main trade routes. Arab traders who had sailed across vast seas brought goods from the Middle East to Somalia's coastal ports like Mogadishu and Berbera. However, what they brought was not just spices, silk, or gold, but also a greater message, a religion that came to bring peace, unity, and a new way of life. These traders were not merely selling goods, they were also spreading the teachings of Islam, sharing stories about the one God, Prophet Muhammad, and how to live according to Allah's guidance. Imagine the atmosphere at these ports, ships filled with traders who interacted not only commercially, but also introduced Islam to the local population. At first, the acceptance of Islam might have seemed slow, but the seeds of Islamic teachings began to take root among Somalia's coastal communities. At the port of Mogadishu, one of Somalia's busiest ports, a meeting between Arab traders and the local population became the starting point for the spread of the religion. The Somali people, already accustomed to the arrival of foreign traders, began to listen to the teachings brought by these traders. Every conversation taking place in the marketplace or under the shade of large trees not only discussed commerce but also started introducing new religious concepts such as prayer, fasting, and zakat. The uniqueness of Somali society, which highly values oral tradition, allowed Islamic outreach to develop through stories passed down orally. The Arab traders, who may have initially struggled with the local language, began using simple ways to convey their religious message, laying the foundations of Islamic teachings in Somali society. The spread of Islam in Somalia at the early stages was not instantaneous. Islam came not only through the influence of traders, but also through deep cultural and social interactions. This religion was not imposed, but spread through teachings filled with love and respect for local traditions. The traders and Islamic missionaries used very elegant ways to touch the hearts and minds of the Somali people, explaining the universal values of Islam: peace, equality, and social justice. At that time, Somalia was a society already accustomed to trade and intertribal relations, providing room for new ideas, such as Islam, to naturally permeate their social structure. Although challenges remained, such as differences in beliefs and deeply rooted traditions, many tribes in Somalia began to embrace Islam as a new way of life that was more focused and filled with hope. The importance of Somalia's ports in spreading Islam cannot be underestimated. As major trade centers, they became meeting points for many cultures, religions, and ideas. Arab traders who came from all corners of the world did not only bring goods but also acted as agents of change in introducing greater religious values. For centuries, Somalia became a bridge for the Islamic world, connecting the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa. Not only because of its strategic location, but also because of the way Islam was embraced by the local population. The traders who arrived brought not only material goods, but also invaluable ideas that transformed the way of life for the Somali people. After the first arrival of Islam through traders, Somalia began to witness how the religion not only became a part of spiritual life, but also played a role in influencing the social and cultural aspects of society. Somalia's ports, such as Mogadishu, Berbera, and Kismayo, were not only trading hubs for valuable goods like spices, gold, and silk, but also centers for the exchange of ideas and culture. Imagine the atmosphere at these busy ports, large ships coming and going, while local and foreign traders met in the vibrant marketplaces. However, beyond just economic transactions, these meetings also created space for the peaceful and loving spread of Islam. The Muslim traders who docked at these ports did not only bring goods, but also religious teachings that touched the hearts of the Somali people. They spoke not only about profit and trade, but also about the concept of the one God, about the equality of humanity before Allah, and about the afterlife that offered hope and direction for mankind. Through casual conversations in the marketplace or during breaks at the port, Islam began to touch the souls of the Somali people. The Arab traders, who were the primary pioneers in introducing Islam, did not come just to trade. They also had a mission to share the teachings of Islam. Through their daily interactions with the Somali people, these traders began to teach the basics of the religion, such as Tawheed, the oneness of God, prayer, fasting, zakat, and pilgrimage. Islam was not only spread through sermons or formal lectures, but also through the actions and behaviors of the traders themselves. The honesty, peace, and simplicity displayed by the Muslim traders became an attractive model for Somali society. In Somali culture, which highly values social relationships and kinship, the lifestyle of the Muslim traders resonated deeply, inspiring many to embrace Islam. One interesting aspect of the spread of Islam in Somalia was how the religion interacted with the local traditions that already existed. At that time, Somali society had many long-standing beliefs and spiritual practices, but the arrival of Islam brought a new perspective on God, life, and death. Islam proposed a direct relationship between the individual and God, without intermediaries, offering Somali society space to seek deeper meaning in their lives. The trade that occurred between various groups, both Muslim and non-Muslim, created a rich dialogue between religion and culture. Although there were differences in beliefs, the social interactions between Muslim traders and the local population paved the way for a greater understanding of Islam. Many Somalis became fascinated by the simplicity and peace that Islam offered, as well as the principles of social justice reflected in its teachings. One crucial element in the spread of Islam in Somalia was how the religion built strong social connections between people from various clans and regions. Somalia, with its social structure deeply based on clans and tribes, often faced challenges in uniting different groups. However, Islam's teachings about the brotherhood of Muslims, regardless of tribe, race, or background, provided a new understanding that united them as one community. With the arrival of Islam, many Somalis who had previously been isolated by tribal or regional boundaries began to see themselves as part of a larger community, the global Muslim Ummah. Mosques began to appear all over Somalia, not only as places of worship, but also as social gathering centers, places to share knowledge, and hubs for religious discussions. Here, different groups began to learn to respect their differences and build relationships based on Islamic principles. Islam in Somalia was never forced. Its spread took place through Dawa, missionary work, that was filled with love and gentleness. The traders, preachers, and religious teachers often adopted a more personal approach to teaching Islam, making it easier to accept. In a society already accustomed to oral tradition and informal communication, Dawa conducted with a gentle approach and direct dialogue was much easier to embrace. In this process, many Somali people were drawn to the teachings of Islam because of its simplicity. Islam teaches peace, brotherhood, and compassion for others, which resonated with the traditional Somali culture that deeply values peace and familial relationships. This led many Somalis to feel that Islam was not only a spiritual guide, but also a means to improve their lives socially and morally. Amid the bustling trade and social interactions that laid the foundation for the spread of Islam in Somalia, there is a deeper dimension that played a crucial role in strengthening the religion. The Dawa, missionary work, carried out by saints and spiritual teachers, as well as the significant influence of Sufi orders in nurturing spiritual depth. This chapter will explore how the loving Dawa of Islam, along with the substantial impact of Sufi orders, further spread Islam into the very souls of the Somali people. Somalia was not only a land traversed by traders, but also a land rich in spiritual traditions and deep beliefs. From the 12th to the 15th centuries, Sufi movements emerged, adding a new dimension to the spiritual journey of the Somali people. Sufism, with its profound teachings, reached the inner depths of the human soul, offering a more personal way of connecting with God. The Sufi orders were not merely rituals or teachings brought by outsiders, but became a path that could be understood by the Somali people through personal experience and spiritual discovery. The Sufi approach offered a gentle and peaceful way of life, which resonated strongly with the local culture that valued peace and harmony. One of the reasons why Sufi orders gained such strength in Somalia was the role of the Wali, holy men in Sufi tradition, who came to spread Islam. These holy men did not just teach Islamic principles, but they lived as examples for the community. They taught the people to live with sincerity, humility, and a deep love for God. Their journeys often crossed social and cultural boundaries, creating deeper connections between the local community and Islam. Each of these Sufi saints carried teachings not only about formal worship, but also about the search for inner peace and spiritual enlightenment. They taught that Islam was not only about religious duties, but also about finding peace within oneself, maintaining good relationships with others, and improving society. The Dawa conducted by the Sufi saints and leaders in Somalia was very different from more formal methods of preaching. They used a personal approach that truly touched the heart. In many cases, the Sufi saints would visit villages, converse with the locals, listen to their problems, and offer solutions based on Islamic teachings. One of the distinctive methods of Dawa was through the practice of dhikr, remembrance of God, in specific prayers which helped individuals feel closer to God. The practice of dhikr and spiritual meditation taught by the Sufis became an integral part of Somali life, adding not only spiritual depth, but also strengthening solidarity among Muslims. Dhikr became a way to calm the heart and soul amidst the challenges of life. The Sufi orders played a significant role in shaping social life in Somalia. These orders not only taught religion, but also formed strong social bonds within the community. Through gatherings for dhikr and religious meetings, people from various backgrounds and tribes would come together to deepen their faith and build solidarity. In many ways, the Sufi orders acted as a bridge between the individual and society. They taught Islamic principles that focused not only on ritual duties, but also on values such as compassion, sacrifice, and improving social relationships. This was a concept that resonated deeply with Somali culture, which highly values togetherness and harmony. During periods of conflict in Somalia, especially during the Civil War, the Sufi orders remained a source of peace and tranquility for many. In times of hardship, many Somalis sought refuge and enlightenment from the Sufi saints they had long known. These saints, with their wisdom and serenity, became symbols of hope and peaceful resolution. Moreover, the Sufi teachings, which emphasized patience, tolerance, and compassion, served as a balancing force in a society torn by conflict. Through the Sufi orders, many Somalis learned to accept differences and maintain peace in their daily lives. As Islam continued to grow in Somalia, mosques and madrasas, Islamic schools, became important centers for the spread of Islamic teachings. In addition to being places of worship, mosques also served as educational institutions where religious teachers would instruct the younger generation in the basics of Islam, Quranic interpretation, and Sufi teachings. This education provided a strong foundation for society to understand Islam more deeply and to practice its teachings in everyday life. The madrasas in Somalia became places where Islamic thought expanded, teaching both religious knowledge and general knowledge, and providing a space for students to explore the intellectual heritage of the Islamic world. This was an important legacy, helping Somali society remain firm in its commitment to Islam while facing it with greater spiritual depth and understanding. After Islam began to permeate Somali society through trade, Dawa, and Sufi orders, it was time for the emerging Islamic kingdoms in the region to play a significant role in strengthening the teachings of Islam and spreading it further. During the medieval period, several powerful Islamic kingdoms emerged in Somalia, and they became pillars in introducing and deepening Islamic practices among the population. This chapter will reveal how these Islamic kingdoms helped solidify the influence of Islam in Somaliland. The Kingdom of Afat, which existed from the 13th to the 15th century, was one of the first kingdoms to have a major influence on the spread of Islam in Somalia. Located in the area that now includes central and southern Somalia, Ifat became one of the leading Islamic forces, playing a crucial role in integrating Islamic teachings into the political, social, and cultural life of the society. The Kingdom of Ifat played a key role in connecting Somalia with the broader Islamic world, including the great kingdoms of the Middle East. Through its influence, Ifat introduced an Islamic governance system based on Sharia law, which strengthened Islam's position in the society. The kingdom also forged close ties with Muslim traders, further reinforcing Somalia's connection with the Islamic world. It is important to note that in many Islamic kingdoms, The acceptance of Islam by the ruling class was a pivotal factor in introducing the religion to the people. In Ifat, the kings and local rulers not only adopted Islam as their personal faith, but also encouraged the people to follow their example. This was a strategic move that facilitated the broader spread of Islam, as rulers were often seen as role models by their subjects. With the presence of Muslim rulers, Islam gained strong political legitimacy, making it easier for the elite and the general population to embrace. This created a solid foundation for the further spread of Islam throughout the region. After the kingdom of Ifat, the Sultanate of Adal rose to prominence, ruling northern Somalia and parts of modern Ethiopia. This sultanate became more famous for its struggle against the Ethiopian Empire. But beyond that, the Sultanate of Adal played an important role in expanding the influence of Islam in Somalia and its surrounding areas. The Sultanate of Adal became a center of Islamic culture, with cities like Zayla and Berbera serving as bustling trade hubs where Muslim traders from around the world gathered. In many ways, the Sultanate of Adal acted as a bastion of Islam in the Horn of Africa, strengthening Islam's position by establishing mosques, madrasas, and Islamic educational institutions that produced many scholars and intellectuals. The Sultanate of Adal is also known for its bravery in defending its land from the Ethiopian Empire, which sought to replace Islam with Christianity. One of the significant events in the history of the Sultanate of Adal was the famous Battle of Walwal, 1529, where the Sultanate of Adal, led by Sultan Ahmed Grang, fought the larger Ethiopian forces. Although the Sultanate of Adal ultimately could not maintain its dominance, this struggle became a symbol of steadfastness in defending Islam. The role of the Sultanate of Adal in the battle to preserve Islam against external threats had a significant impact on the morale of Muslims in Somalia and the surrounding regions. The Sultanate became a symbol of strength and courage in defending Islam and Islamic identity, inspiring future generations to continue fighting for Islam in the region. Under the rule of these Islamic kingdoms, Islamic education flourished. Mosques and madrasas became key centers for religious teaching, where students from various backgrounds gathered to study the Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, Islamic law, and Tafsir, Quranic exegesis. Both the Kingdom of Ifat and the Sultanate of Adal developed networks of Islamic schools that not only introduced religious teachings, but also knowledge and literature related to Islam. This education was not limited to imams and scholars, but was also accessible to the general public. Many Somali families sent their children to madrasas to study religious knowledge, which in turn spread a broader understanding of Islam throughout the country. In addition to education, one of the lasting legacies of the Islamic kingdoms in Somalia is the architecture of mosques and religious buildings. The mosques built under the rule of Ifat, Adal, and other kingdoms still stand as silent witnesses to the glory of Islam in Somalia. The grand and ornately designed mosques with classical Islamic architectural styles reflect how important Islam was in the political and cultural life of Somali society. Mosques became not only places of worship, but also symbols of power and Islamic culture, integrated into every aspect of life. From the large mosques built in the city centers to the smaller madrasas in rural areas, this architecture continues to remind contemporary generations of the cultural heritage left by these Islamic kingdoms. The legacy of these Islamic kingdoms is not confined to the past. The influence of kingdoms like Ifat and Adal can still be felt in the social and cultural structure of modern Somalia. The Islamic values introduced by these kingdoms laid the foundation for a strong religious identity in Somalia, which endures to this day. The Islamic education that thrived during the reign of these kingdoms continues today, with many madrasas and Islamic universities across Somalia teaching religious knowledge as well as other subjects. Additionally, the spirit of struggle and determination in defending Islam, inherited from the time of the Sultanate of Adal, still serves as inspiration for many in Somalia who strive to preserve their Islamic identity in the face of modern challenges. After more than 1,000 years of Islam's long journey in Somalia, the country now faces new challenges in the modern era. From a rich history of Islamic kingdoms to the spiritual depth brought by Sufi orders, Somalia today faces various social, political, and economic issues that could impact the existence and development of Islam in the country. However, in every challenge, there is also an opportunity for revival and transformation that can bring new hope for future generations. This chapter will discuss how Islam is developing in Somalia today, the challenges faced, and the potential for the resurgence of the religion in the future. As a country with more than 99% of its population practicing Islam, Somalia has long been one of the countries whose identity is deeply intertwined with the teachings of Islam. Islam is not just a religion, but also an integral part of the daily life of the Somali people, in worship, social interactions, and addressing various life issues. Despite the challenges Somalia faces, including conflict and poverty, Islam remains a source of strength and resilience for many Somalis. Islam in Somalia is often described as a form of faith that is strong and unwavering, with people actively practicing their religion in their lives. There are many mosques scattered throughout the country in celebrations of major holidays such as Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are held with great enthusiasm. Additionally, spiritual practices such as dhikr, night prayers, and visits to Sufi sites remain a part of the Somali tradition. However, Islam in Somalia is not without significant challenges. The country has experienced years of destructive internal conflict, civil war, as well as persistent issues of poverty and political instability. Tensions between groups competing for power often worsen the situation, creating space for extremist groups to exploit this uncertainty. Groups like Al-Shabaab, which claims to represent an extremist ideology of Islam, have taken advantage of Somalia's instability to introduce a more radical and harsh version of Islam. This group often uses terrorism tactics to achieve its goals, causing many deaths and suffering, as well as damaging the image of Islam in the eyes of the outside world. This extremist ideology not only contradicts the peaceful teachings of Islam, but also threatens the diversity and social peace that has long existed in Somalia. Although extremist groups like Al-Shabaab have significant influence in parts of the country, the vast majority of Muslims in Somalia adhere to more moderate and tolerant views toward others. Many Somali scholars and religious leaders work hard to educate the public about the importance of peaceful and compassionate Islam, far from violence and radicalization. Moderate Islamic organizations in Somalia, along with the international religious community, are working to raise awareness that Islam is a religion that teaches peace, compassion, and social justice. Many initiatives are being undertaken to counter extremist ideologies by teaching more universal values of Islam that are closer to the everyday lives of the people. Additionally, the strong Sufi tradition in Somalia plays a significant role in promoting a moderate and inclusive understanding of Islam. Sufi orders, which have long been an important part of Somalia's Islamic history, continue to play a role in maintaining spiritual peace amid the political and social turmoil. Sufi leaders often act as mediators within society, reminding the people of the importance of compassion and forgiveness in religious life. One of the biggest challenges Somalia faces is the development of adequate education, including Islamic education. Quality education is urgently needed to cultivate a young generation capable of understanding Islam better and providing them with the necessary skills to build a better future. Islamic schools and educational institutions in Somalia play a very important role in this regard. Many young Somalis access Islamic education that not only teaches religious theory, but also other subjects like science, mathematics, and language, which are crucial for the development of a modern society. Some Islamic educational institutions in Somalia have now partnered with international organizations to improve curricula and teaching methods to make them more relevant to the needs of the times. The key to sustaining the development of Islam in Somalia lies in the active role of the community, especially the younger generation. Somali youth who face significant challenges in terms of political instability, employment, and education have great potential to become agents of change, bringing about a peaceful and progressive revival of Islam. Somali youth are increasingly active in various social activities that support Islamic values, such as helping disaster victims, establishing mosque-based social projects, and participating in discussions on how Islam can address the challenges of the modern age. Many young people desire social and political change based on the principles of moderate and compassionate Islam. They realize that Islam is a religion that can provide solutions to many of the problems faced by Somali society today. Given the challenges, there is much hope for the future of Islam in Somalia. The presence of better education, increased awareness of the importance of moderation, and the active involvement of the community in social and political development can be key factors in encouraging the peaceful and hopeful resurgence of Islam. Somalia has great potential to develop into a stable and prosperous country, with Islam as the central force guiding its people toward peace, social justice, and progress. Additionally, Somalia has a rich historical heritage that can serve as an inspiration for future generations to preserve the integrity of the true teachings of Islam, a Islam that teaches peace, harmony, and compassion for one another. With the combined efforts of the community, youth, and religious leaders, Somalia has the potential to become an example for other countries in applying a peaceful Islam that brings progress for humanity.